was in culinary school back in the dark ages called 1995, our first lab classes involved the basics of cooking. We spent a week learning how to wear our uniforms, a week learning how to cut vegetables, and a week learning how to cook eggs, etc., etc., etc. When we started learning about the foundations of cuisine, we started with stock. Now, according to the web page chelseagreen.com, the word stock comes from an Old English Germanic word meaning trunk. It goes on to say that in French, it's closer to the meaning of fond, or foundation. Broth comes from the same Anglo-Germanic root as brew, a concoction created by boiling. Our modern understanding of both comes from the Victorian food influencer Auguste Escoffier. Stock is simply a flavored liquid. The flavoring comes from vegetables and or bones. Whereas broth, in the culinary world, is flavored with meat. It can have vegetables and bones in it, but it must have meat. So if your flavorful liquid that is created by boiling has meat in it, by definition, it is broth. If it doesn't, then it's stock. Likewise, there's no such thing as vegetable broth, though broth can have vegetables. Let's look at some examples of this. This is a vegetable stock. When I have time, I like to make this as a basis for all my broths. If not, I buy the best boxed or canned vegetable stock I can afford. I make my vegetable stock with carrots, celery, onions, and flavored with garlic, thyme, parsley, bay leaves, salt, and pepper. I want to explain something here. In the professional culinary world, we have an axiom: garbage in, garbage out. I see a lot of millennial and Gen Z influencers saying, freeze your veggie scraps and make a broth out of it. No. Use the freshest ingredients you can. I'm not saying throw out your veggie scraps. Honestly, either you can compost them yourself or find a community garden to compost them for you. I have a tote that I put my scraps in out on my patio. I use this to start my seeds for my summer garden. Okay, back to the show. You want to cut your vegetables fairly small. The smaller the vegetables, the more flavorful the stock will be. Whatever vessel you are making your stock in, you'll want to fill it about halfway with vegetables in a kind of weird 1-2-3 ratio. 1 small onion, 2 large carrots, 3 celery ribs. This will be enough to fill a quart saucepan. Just step it up for larger pots. Finding an imperial setup guide is a good idea. 2 cups in a pint, 2 pints in a quart, 4 quarts in a gallon. So, veggies halfway up, then fill with water. Simmer for at least 2 hours. The longer, the better. You may see foam on the top. Just skim it off. If the liquid in your vessel reduces or lowers by half, add more water. In school, we would simmer our stocks for days. And it's fine if you have the space and sound fire alarms. Keeping the fire going is a historical way of preserving food. As long as it doesn't go under 140 degrees Fahrenheit, it will not get toxic. Strain out your liquid into a heat-proof bowl when it is done. When is it done? Oh, and it tastes more like vegetables than water? Toss your cooked veggies into the compost or freeze them for your local community garden. Good morning. The stock has been simmering all morning. I turned it off about an hour ago to let it cool down a little bit. Had my morning tea. I wish we had smell-o-vision because, this smells so good. So, I'm going to transfer it into a pitcher so that I can work at getting it divided up and refrigerated while my son's watching his favorite YouTuber. But yeah, I'll show you how I bag this stuff up in the next clip. When the stock is cooler, you can transfer your veggie stock to zip-top bags. The trick is to put a bag into a tall vessel like a tumbler or a vase. Then, if you have a baker's tray or cutting board, place that in the freezer and lay the bags flat. Or you can pour your stock into ice cube trays, and when frozen, put the cubes in zip-top bags and store them that way. Next, we'll look at chicken stock. Do you like chicken wings? Rotisserie chicken from the store? Save the bones! I make game hens occasionally, and I cut out the spines. I'll save those in the freezer until I need to make stock. We're going to start the same way we did with the vegetable stock. 1 onion, 2 carrots, 3 celery, garlic, thyme, bay, salt, pepper. Now, before the liquid, add the chicken bones. Now, instead of water, we'll add the vegetable stock that we made earlier. Simmer for at least 2 hours. Again, the more the better. The most flavorful chicken stock is simmered until the bones fall apart. Bone meal is very nutritious for plants, so place your solids in the compost. This chicken stock is what's called a white stock. To make a brown stock, you'll need to roast the bones and vegetables until they're nicely brown. To make beef stock the traditional way, you need an oven. You're going to roast the beef bones, vegetables, and a large tomato or a 6-ounce can of tomato paste in a moderate oven, about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 30 minutes to an hour. Where do you get beef bones? You should be able to find them either in the freezer section as dog bones, or if your food mart has a butcher on staff, ask them. So here I am, just heating up the lovely marrow bones for the beef stock. And I want to get this done before I take my kid to school. So that's about right. You can hear that sizzle. That is beef tallow, which is amazingly flavorful. Really great stuff. So let's dump all of this into the pan. Now there's stuff stuck on the bottom. That's okay. We want that. We're going to take tomato paste. This is just a 16-ounce can. Or 6-ounce can, sorry.
6-ounce can.
And we're going to fry that in the beef tallow and use it to deglaze or get all of the yummy stuff that's stuck on the bottom. Gonna throw a little bit of my vegetable broth, stock. Broth has meat. Stock does not. So I've put a little bit of my vegetable stock in here to try and get the rest of this. The French call it fond. I like to say because it's fond of the pan, so it's sticking to it. Just about caramelized my tomato paste to the right consistency. And I'm going to put the tomato paste in the pan as well. I'm I'm going to get the pan again nice and hot. I'm going to take some of this vegetable stock and use it to get the rest of the stuff off the bottom of the pan. Wooden spoon is better than silicone spatula, but my wooden spoon is not in here right now. So let's just add that into the pan.
A pot?
And turn on the high side of my little cooktop here. Put the pot on. Take the rest of my gallon of veggie stock. Because I'm using the veggie stock, I'm not using fresh vegetables in this, so we get the nice roasted vegetable flavor. And I'm going to put a lid on this and let it simmer for a couple hours. Pro tip, be careful with this. The tomato content will stain. We used Tide with bleach, not sponsored, and made a paste and applied it with a toothbrush to clean out our uniforms. Again, use a zip top tall cup method or the ice cube tray method to store your beef or chicken stock. All of the above stocks will keep in the freezer for about 3 months to a year, but trust me, you will use them up long before then. Because vegetables cannot make a broth, by definition, you can make a double stock or a roasted double stock with your vegetables. For double stock, take your fresh vegetables and seasoning, cover with your single vegetable stock, and simmer, and Bob's your uncle. For the roasted double stock, roast your vegetables first, with a large tomato or tomato paste, and do the same thing. At this point, you can add whatever veggies you want. Leeks and turnips are traditional, but broccoli, cauliflower, and squashes, kale, the sky's the limit. To make chicken broth is just like chicken stock, except you need meat. You'll want to get a roaster if you use raw chicken. Roasting chickens are the oldest chickens sold. They are called roasters because they benefit from the slow roasting to keep the meat tender and juicy. This also means they have a more chickeny flavor. You'll need to pull out the offal, liver, kidney, heart, usually in a paper bag or plastic. You can discard them or add them to your broth for an even more chickeny flavor. Or feed them to your carnivore pet. Snakes and cats love chicken hearts. You could also roast your own chicken with the vegetables, or get a rotisserie chicken from the store. The rest is just the same. I would double the veggies for a whole raw chicken or a home roasted chicken, and add your chicken stock. Simmer till done. I have bubbling chicken stock here that is just absolutely wonderful. Has a rich chickeny flavor, and now we're going to up that by adding a whole roasted chicken. And all the roasted vegetables and offal and all the juices that came off of it while I was roasting it. And I've got a little bit of extra veggie broth here, and I am going to put it into this pan to get everything that's left behind off. All that nice, delicious roasted chicken flavor. It's a non-stick pan, but it's still considered fond, which is the yummy bits, yummy caramely bits that stick to the pan. Okay, now I'm going to let this simmer overnight. So I have here fresh poultry blend. It's just, rosemary, sage, and thyme. But this time the thyme is nice and fresh. So that'll go into the pot. A little bit extra pepper because I don't think I put enough pepper in it. Oh. Smell-o-vision. I wish it was a thing. Smells amazing. Very chickeny, and the poultry herbs are just so fragrant. So yummy. Though I do kind of... I am kind of upset that chicken went into the pot because... Oh, that was a bay leaf. Because that skin got so crispy. It was wonderful. So I'm going to let this simmer for a little bit, and I'll check it in a couple hours. Chicken broth comes with the added benefit of cooked chicken. You can save it for chicken noodle soup, enchiladas, or one of my favorite dishes, and just very fun to say, kakaliki. It's a traditional Scots dish of chicken, leeks, mushrooms, and barley or rice. For beef broth, I usually like to use oxtails. Oxtails have a lot of connective tissue, and the tails are used a lot. This combination makes for a very good beefy taste. For this demonstration, I was not able to get oxtails, so I replaced that with boneless short ribs. Again, the meat gets a lot of use, so it has a really good beefy flavor when slow simmered. Again, you're going to roast your meat with the vegetables and tomatoes in a moderate oven for about half an hour. Place them in your vessel with the beef stock, herbs, spices, and simmer until done. So here is the roasted beef ribs that is going to go into the beef stock to make beef broth. Now, instead of using tomato paste like I did with the beef stock, I actually went through and roasted some of these, put that there to look pretty, roasted tomatoes with the beef so everything got nice and caramelized. Now I'll just tip everything in here. From personal experience, well, when using oxtails, getting the meat out of the tails when it's hot is challenging. So let them cool completely before attempting. The veggies go in the composting, and the meat is excellent for beef and barley soup. Do not compost animal proteins. Your place begins to smell like a body farm. Ask me how I know. Freeze by the method of your choosing and use as needed. You will find reasons to use your homemade stocks and broth. And totally forget about bone broth. You can make all of these recipes in a slow cooker or an Instapot or even a cast iron Dutch oven in your oven. I've made fantastic chicken broth in disposable lasagna pans in an oven. You're only limited by your imagination. You can also use any shells, bones, shellfish, fish, or even pork for a fumé, fish stock. You only want to simmer it for about 30 minutes and add a cup of white wine or lemon juice. For pork, just follow the same instructions as the chicken or beef broth. Veal, venison, any other game can be treated similarly. These methods are thousands of years old and never truly changing. It's been about 12 hours since I started the chicken broth. You can see that the chicken is just absolutely falling apart. Some of these bones will fall apart too. So I'm going to strain this out and put it into some zip top bags for later usage, and start working on the beef version of stock and broth. It is the last day. I will explain all of this mess here, but we have this lovely beef broth that has been simmering for about 20 hours now. Lift up the beef and it just falls apart. The bones are still in one piece, but that's okay. This is just luscious liquid love. I'm gonna give it another hour to simmer. Look at that, look at that. And then I'm gonna bag it up and stick it in the freezer until I'm ready to use it. I just woke up. Yesterday was Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023, and we had part of that. Oh, hello. We had part of that massive low pressure from the Gulf of Mexico, Arctic air coming in issue. Now, we did not get it as bad as the Northern Plains or the Northern Midwest or the Lake States, but we did end up with a power outage, and that just messed everything up. Thank God it only lasted about 2 to 3 hours, so we were pretty good. Also, about the time that I got home from dropping my son off at school yesterday, which is about a 5-minute drive, I got a call saying, come back and get him, he's sick. So I've had a sick kid, power outage, just all sorts of high stress environments, and that's why I'm still wearing the same shirt as when I was filming yesterday. But hopefully we'll get this video out in time, and